people struggle. If you're working 30 years in a specific field, it's become part of your identity. And it's hard to just walk away from it. But it's also hard to continue getting ready every day to doing your job.
Right.
And the question then becomes, how much harm are you doing to yourself? The answer to the question of when somebody should pull the trigger, so to speak, on a disability insurance claim, I tell clients, I can't answer that question.
Right.
I can tell you legally when you're supposed to give notice to an insurance company, but the question of when to take that jump is something you have to answer yourself. And the guiding principle I give folks are, if you are waking up every day and you're giving it your best and you are suffering and you're struggling, listen to your body.
Hi, I'm Haylie Pomroy, a fierce advocate in the health and wellness community, a #1 New York Times best-selling author, and an individual that's decided that her lifelong journey is going to be bringing people to you to get you the help that you need on your journey. As many of you know, I dealt with an autoimmune disorder. I was on several medications, and really my future was not very bright. I have come through a massive health victory. I feel incredible. I feel amazing. And it was because I was able to connect with people that helped me fight the fight. And so today I have the incredible opportunity to meet with a lawyer, an attorney that fights the fight for patients that are dealing with chronic disease, chronic illness, and really struggling like I was. So today I have the pleasure of having Edward Dabdoub here with me today. Eddie, thank you so much for being here.
My pleasure, Haylie. It's nice to be with you.
So Eddie, first, I want to say that there are so many people that are struggling right now with viral reactivation, chronic fatigue, but really, we have seen a huge influx into our clinics with COVID long hauler or long COVID. Are you starting to see the ramifications of that in your practice?
Yeah, absolutely. The pandemic, for all intent and purposes, it's over, right? But for so many people, they're still in the thick of it.
Right.
And we have indeed seen this massive influx of clients now that are struggling with long COVID. It's definitely now a very large part of our disability insurance practice.
So when I was just at a conference in Slovenia, the International Congress of Autoimmune Disorders, and every one of the immunologists there, lecture after lecture, were talking about the plague after the plague, or the pandemic after the pandemic. And this is these individuals that are truly not clearing either their viral load or are really dealing with the ramifications of having chronic disease. And it's impacting every aspect of their life. First, I want to just take a step back and ask you a little bit about how you personally became involved in disability insurance.
Okay. So, the journey began before I think I got to the United States. I grew up in a family, 5 kids in all. My father is an attorney. Of the 5 kids, 4 of us ended up being attorneys.
Wow.
So it's there was something there, I think, all along where we've kind of looked at the help my father had provided to many people in an impoverished country over the years. Most of his clients were pro bono.
Wow.
And I remember going to his office as a young child and seeing a queue of folks just waiting outside to get his legal advice and help. And I think that kind of left an impression on me and maybe my siblings as well. So we mostly ended up becoming attorneys. And so after graduating from high school in Jamaica, I came to the United States to pursue a law degree, first undergrad, then law. Then I did an M.B.A. and then a pit stop, M.B.A., then law school, right? And then I ended up staying because I fell in love with 2 things. 1, my wife, and 2, this practice area, right? This area of law of disability insurance. And I think what drew me to this practice area was that I realized we are the proverbial underdogs. Here you have an individual at the most vulnerable point in their life. They're struggling and they can't work anymore. And now they have to take on a for-profit insurance company. It's just not an equal fight. And so in law school, I started working as a law clerk at a law firm and handled one of these cases. And that case also left a massive impact on me because I won the case as a law clerk and I saw how it had improved that person's quality of life because now there's a source of income, and that young man could now provide for himself and his family, and that gave him some hope. And that really kind of just set in me this idea that this is what I am going to be doing.
Hey guys, it's Haylie Pomroy, your host. Right about now, you're probably struggling to achieve the health that you deserve, and you're just not sure what you need to do in order to get it. So what I've done is I've created a special link for you that will give you the nutrition and supplement programs that I use in my private practice to achieve amazing results for my clients and my community. Go to HayliePomroy.com/podcast. Plus, when you use that link, you'll get a 20% discount just because I love you. Again, that's HayliePomroy.com/podcast. Now, back to the episode.
Obviously, the seeds were planted early with your family and the heart to help, but specifically in the disability space. I don't think we've ever seen anything like this where there is an infectious component, right, that is making people not well enough to work. And not only not well enough to work, but needing the support so that they can get well, right? Needing that opportunity. What types of disability law were you focusing on pre-pandemic?
Well, as a law firm that specializes in disability insurance, we've seen it all.
Okay.
They're just about every medical condition that one could think of. We've handled those cases. But I think one of the big parts of our practice has always been pre-pandemic ME/CFS.
Got it.
And that has been a journey that as a law firm we've all kind of been on as the science and the treatment has evolved since I've been doing this for 20 years. But yeah, I would say Parkinson's is also a big part of our practice, other neurological disorders, MS. And of course, we see a lot of clients who are struggling with chronic debilitating back pain.
Oh,
as well.
Yes. And let me ask you this. What's unique about a firm that specializes in disability insurance?
That's a great question. Disability insurance it's really a niche practice area.
It is.
Right?
And it's so hard to navigate.
It's like a spider web of rules, and there's a legal framework that's in place that both the insurance company and the person who is seeking disability has to abide by. The insurance company knows what those rules are. The individual has no clue. But yet they're still held accountable to following those certain
So the playing
rules.
field is not level by any stretch of the imagination.
No, not even close.
And so your firm specifically has a very kind of, I'll say, an organized approach to handling, making sure that their patients are in compliance with those rules, that the appropriate visits are being made, things that maybe I couldn't navigate on my own.
Yeah, I think the way I describe our law firm is it's now a well-oiled machine. Right. And we've built departments in the law firm to focus on what stage of the case are we at. And within each department, we've trained the attorneys and the assistants to become experts with the rules that apply to that stage of the case. And so the case, like any other legal case, really has a life, a shelf life, right? And it's from the beginning through the end. And as a case moves through the law firm, it's going through the different departments, and at each stage, the case is handled by an expert in that field. And that's kind of different than how other law firms are structured, right? And this is where my M.B.A. background came in, where I looked at it and I said, we have a unique challenge here in the world of disability insurance where we are the underdogs and we're going up against the big insurance companies. We have to do better. We have to build something better to be able to level this playing field. And so I tossed out the old model of how law firms are structured. And I built a law firm from scratch that's based more on efficiency and structured in a way that positions our clients' cases for success.
And I'll just throw in there, we've seen many cases that have had a legacy of not being successful. So people that have been denied. And then they come into your system of approach. And it is like David and Goliath. I mean, it is really difficult to navigate all of that. And I think when people have chronic disease component in there, right, you've got to navigate the medical component, the financial component, and the legal component, that none of us have the wherewithal or the education or the faculty to do that. So it's really nice to be able to plug people into that system that you guys have created. What was the motivation for creating that system?
Stubbornness. Just really, it's like
you wanted to win for people.
It's a refusal to lose.
I love that. It's a refusal to lose. The stakes are too high.
Every client that comes to us has one case. And that one case is the most important fight of their life.
Right.
And we can't afford to lose it.
Right.
And I'm a sore loser. And so we needed to build a law firm that would make sure we have the best chance of winning these cases. And as I look back at this journey, I'm really proud to say that we've been cranking out wins after wins in federal court of appeals. And even there's a majority of our clients never even have to step foot in court because we're getting them paid. The insurance companies are backing down.
Right.
When a case goes through our system.
How do people get a hold of you to see if they're a good fit for your firm?
Yeah. Well, we encourage people, call us as quickly as possible. It's never too soon to speak with us.
Even if someone's not sure if they need an attorney at this point, you guys can help. I know I've seen you guys give people guidance. What is the phone number that they would call?
Right. It's a toll-free number. It's 888-812-0393.
So I love that. You talked about calling or reaching out as early as possible. Is some of that so that you can help people navigate the beginning of their journey? Is that, in medicine we call it preventative or prophylactic, but is it something that you can help a person get the right diagnostics, ask the right questions, get the right documentation?
All of the above. And I'll just give you one example of some of the things that people aren't aware of, and that initial phone call can help guide them with, right? Every once in a while, we get a call from someone who says, well, I had your number. We were considering calling.
Yes.
And I said to myself, well, I'm really sick and disabled, and the insurance company will see that, and I'll get paid. So I won't call him now, but if I'm denied, I'll call him. And what tends to happen is there is a point where the insurance company is doing a review, and we've seen it so many times. The insurance company sends that person for a quote unquote independent medical examination by a doctor the insurance company has been using, who is not practicing medicine, doesn't see patients in certain conditions like M.B.A, CFS, Long COVID, have no clue about the condition.
Right.
And those doctors are just cranking out reports saying these folks are not disabled.
Right.
Then the person calls us, and we've got a bigger fight. We've got a bigger problem. We have to untangle these IME reports, right? And so had that person called us before, we could have kind of give them a visualization of how this could play out.
Well, also helping, this is my goal, is to help them navigate into physicians that actually deal with the disorder, disease diagnosis that they have. I mean, we've seen people that come back with reports from doctors that have never seen a single patient with ME/CFS and aren't even running any of the standard of care diagnostics at all. And they're denying them continuity of care. I mean, I guess in our space, it's just, it's so disheartening. Can you speak to me a little bit about the significance of using objective testing, right? To prove that these conditions aren't just a mental health issue, but they're multiple, we call them multiple systemic disorders, right? They affect or impact the pathophysiology that happens can be very diverse. And yes, some of it can have a symptom profile of stress, anxiety, and fatigue, but that is because of the pathophysiology that is off in the body, either dysregulation in the immune system, neuroinflammatory components. From an individual seeking disability support, why do you think legally it's so important for them to get the appropriate diagnostics?
So it's true. You mentioned earlier, many people don't end up getting the right care. And sometimes that becomes a problem, right? When they get sick, it takes a while before they get to someone like a Nancy Climers or a Dr. Ray, right? And so the medical evidence, when you look at it, isn't properly developed until they start to reach these physicians. And so we've run into that problem. Legally, that creates these problems. And so there's an opportunity for an insurance company to step in and say, well, the diagnosis isn't clear, and your symptoms and the restrictions and limitations are by and large subjective, right? Fatigue, right? There's no MRI to measure fatigue.
Right.
And so that's where we get to work. We go, okay, you want to play that game. First, legally, objective evidence is not necessarily required depending on the insurance policy. So we could knock that argument out legally, right? That's where our specialization and understanding disability insurance law comes in. We shut down the insurance companies' attempts to force folks to provide objective evidence.
And as the patient, I wouldn't know that you don't have to do that.
No, you are chasing something that you think you have to provide when truly you don't.
Right.
Then the second thing we do is we go, well, but if you want to play that game, let's do it. Client has cognitive impairments. Let's have a neuropsychological evaluation done. Then let's get that neuropsychological evaluation. The raw data is sent to a separate neuropsychologist who independently reviews it and verifies that the report confirming cognitive impairment is indeed accurate. We use CPET testing,
yes.
1 day, 2 day testing, right? That's the best thing that we can do right now to measure the effects of fatigue and post-exertional malaise. And we get these nice reports that explains all this stuff. And we rub that in the insurance company's nose and say, what do you have?
Right. And it's terrible. I mean, it's terrible. I think being in this space for so long, or even in the autoimmune space, and definitely in any of the cognitive spaces, it's terrible that the patient is living this every single day, right? And that a patient has to feel bullied and criticized and beat up by an insurance company that they've probably been paying into, their employer's been paying into, or their taxes have been paying into for decades, right? Now they find themselves not well. Their fight needs to be to get well, not to fight the insurance company. And that's where we love to see you step in and fight that fight for them.
That's exactly what I tell people that call, right?
Yeah.
Like, you should be focusing 100% of your time and energy on getting better.
Right.
And you not only are not equipped to take on the insurance company, but physically and mentally, you cannot do that.
Right.
And what's the harm that's going to happen if you try to take on this insurance company unrepresented?
Well, it's psychologically damaging to take that on. I mean, absolutely. Give me an example when someone calls you, when a person calls you, what happens? Walk me through that process.
So most people still end up calling us after their disability insurance claim was denied.
Wow.
Believe it or not.
But that's not the ideal.
That's not ideal.
So if you are concerned at all, it's just like you just want to know. People, you need to be informed, right? We love to see our patients be informed with what their options are, because it's so disheartening when someone comes in and we want to run labs and they say, look, I can't even pay my copay because I've been out of work.
Yeah.
So they can't even access the care that they need because they're not getting the financial support that they deserve.
That's right. The majority of, I'd say the phone calls I take every week, if I'm not speaking to another attorney, I'm speaking to people giving free advice. And so people should call and reach out and just kind of get information.
Tell me that number one more time.
888-812-0393.
I like the way you say 8. 888. That's great.
Hi, folks. It's Nancy Klimas. Thanks for listening to the podcast series. We have a lot going on and a lot of research going on in ME/CFS, in Gulf War illness, in Long COVID, Parkinson's disease. You'll find that we have a number of trials going on, clinical trials and different types of studies. To learn more, just go to our webpage on the research tab at nova.edu/NIM, Neuro-Immune Medicine. And you'll see everything that's going on right now. We even have patient conferences every year. We have one coming right up. So check out our webpage. Thanks.
Why do you think it's important to have a legal team that specializes in disability claims for these conditions specifically?
The conditions are so unique. I mean, just look at the medical arena. How many physicians out there
right
really and truly have a grasp on these diseases, right? So if you think about it, like medical doctors themselves don't really fully understand it, save for a few, right? Klimas and Ray and Rosenfeld and such. What do you think lawyers know about the condition?
Right.
How do they know how to argue the condition is disabling? So the truth is most attorneys also don't know disability insurance generally because it's a niche practice. So you have to specialize within this practice area. And then within that specialized practice area, you have to become an expert in these diseases.
And I will tell you, so we had a clinical roundtable the other day, and I think it was Dr. Harris said that it takes about 10 years and 10 doctors before someone gets an adequate diagnosis. And Klimas jumped in and said, 10 doctors? You mean 20. and I do think that there is some shift with COVID, with the long COVID. We're seeing on the cover of Newsweek, we're seeing on the cover, even National Geographic just did the cover with POTS, the posterior orthostatic. Yeah. And so people are starting to talk about these conditions. I think it's going to, my hope is that it's going to really set some of these practitioners or physicians that have told patients for a long time that it's all in their head, right? Back on their heels. Yeah. I really hope that the massive media that this is getting is going to maybe scare insurance companies a little bit.
It only took a pandemic to do that, right?
It only took a pandemic to do that. You know what's terrible is every single one of the patients that are dealing with this, were dealing with it long before the pandemic. Yeah, absolutely. We see such a similarity. I will go to say that even some people say it is the same syndrome, right, as ME/CFS. What challenges do you face as a law firm going up against insurance companies with long COVID or ME/CFS? Like what do you see specifically as a law firm with these types of nuanced disorders?
So I think the main thing is to contrast, when someone becomes disabled because they had a severe stroke or massive heart attack, it's there, it's obvious, it's hard to dispute.
Right.
These conditions, I think the insurance companies look at them and they go, we see an opportunity here. A lot of this is subjective. A lot of this are symptoms that we're not going to be able to objectively verify. You're reporting it to your physician. Your physician is reporting it to us, and we're not just accepting it. And that's how they're looking at it. And so that presents this challenge of the insurance companies not wanting to pay these claims because I think financially they realize, well, first of all, there are a lot of claims now, long COVID claims out there. And it's in their best financial interests to not pay these claims. Right. And then I think they see the opportunity to argue that it's a subjective disability claim. That's I would say it's the main challenge.
So you have to be very specialized in this.
You have to be. Yeah. You have to know how to defeat that argument.
And for our clinic medically, we feel like we have a team that has had years, decades of working in ME/CFS and other neuroinflammatory disorders to prepare us to quickly deal with the COVID patient, right? Do you feel the same way from a law firm that you have had decades of dealing with these neuroinflammatory disorders? So you have the sophistication of understanding the diagnostics, the sophistication of organizing, right, the findings, that it lets you kind of be leaps and bounds of other law firms right now in the COVID space.
Oh, absolutely. And I'll tell you, sometimes I get in front of federal judges, some of the smartest people in the country, and the judges have no clue what's in front of them. And I am there speaking, explaining the diagnostic criteria. I'm explaining how the client meets the diagnostic criteria. I'm explaining the nature of the disease. I have to first, in these types of claims, convince the judge that this is something very real and very disabling. Right. And then I can move on to legally explaining why the insurance company got this wrong.
Right.
And if you don't have, I've been doing this for 20 years, if you don't have all that experience with these conditions, you won't be able to position the case in a way that allows you to win it.
So when a person calls your law firm, what's the next step? Do they have to commit to working with you? Do they get an opportunity to meet you and see if it's a good fit? How does that work? Or one of the attorneys?
Well, no commitment, right? We're happy to give out free advice. I think the first phone call has to just be, we listen, we hear what's going on, and then we're going to give you information that you would not find anywhere else. I think that you need to have And then if you decide to move forward, we're happy to help. And if not, we're still there. Stay in touch, right? But there's never any commitment. People should feel free to call us whenever they have any questions and whenever they need information.
So as a champion for individuals that are dealing with, chronic illness, whether, like you said, we've seen people come your direction for Parkinson's, for MS, when a patient's first diagnosed with that type of chronic disease, how would one know that using disability insurance when do we know when the right time is? I see so many people wait too long, even to access their disability insurance while they try to get this diagnosis under control.
Yeah, Haylie, I can't tell you how many times we see it, and people struggle, right? If you're working 30 years in a specific field, it's become part of your identity. And it's hard to just walk away from it. But it's also hard to continue getting ready every day to doing your job.
Right.
And the question then becomes, how much harm are you doing to yourself? The answer to the question of when somebody should pull the trigger, so to speak, on a disability insurance claim, I tell clients, I can't answer that question.
Right.
I can tell you legally when you're supposed to give notice to an insurance company, but the question of when to take that jump is something you have to answer yourself. And the guiding principle I give folks are, if you are waking up every day and you're giving it your best and you are suffering and you're struggling, listen to your body.
I like that. So if a person so you open your insurance information, maybe you go online and you look at your insurance information. Do you guys help people navigate what insurance they do actually have accessible to them?
We can.
So there's different types of insurance, if I understand that correctly. Can you walk me through that?
Yeah, generally speaking, you have Social Security disability benefits available to pretty much everybody who's been working and have been paying taxes. And that's a disability insurance claim with the government. We don't handle those types of cases. That's federal government benefits. And then you have private disability insurance with an insurance company. And folks either have disability insurance by purchasing it like they would auto insurance on their own through an agent, or most people have disability insurance through work. And we're happy to take a look at those insurance policies just to explain how it works and what requirements there may be.
And your firm specifically specializes in what kind?
In disability insurance with the insurance companies.
Got it.
Not on the government side.
Got it. And so how would a person even know if they had that?
Well, it's similar to health insurance at work.
Okay.
You would know what your employee benefits are. You have health insurance at work. Do you have disability insurance? You're probably enrolled if you do. Some employers enroll people for free, their employees for free.
Right.
So it's always good to check with HR, or sometimes just log in to the employee portal, and you should be able to see what benefits are available to you, right? Vision, dental, and then you have disability insurance.
So do you guys have anything on a website where people can kind of gather this information together before maybe they commit to making a call?
Well, our website has frankly become an encyclopedia of information for people
I love it.
Who are going through this. Just about any question somebody could have is on that website.
And what is the website?
longtermdisability.net.
Longtermdisability.net. That's an easy one.
That's the idea.
I thought you were going to give me your first name and your last name.
Oh, no, I wouldn't do that.
What should people know about? So you mentioned something about, checking in with HR. We've had people that have said, I'm nervous to contact my HR because I don't want them to know. I don't want them to see me differently at work. I don't want to be viewed differently at work.
Practically speaking, the best thing to do is to check any employee portals or statements you get to see what benefits you've enrolled in. And you should very easily be able to see if you're enrolled in disability insurance. But if and when someone gets to a point where they have to really get a copy of their disability insurance policy, laws are in place to protect folks from retaliation of any sort. And so what I have seen in my experiences, most companies know not to respond negatively to a request for a copy of their disability insurance policy.
Right. But, I think there can be kind of a stigma too, even if someone's not worried about maybe their boss would be incredibly empathetic and sympathetic, but maybe they just don't want to be viewed as so many people that we find that have a lot of these diagnosis are really strong, successful, powerful. They get a lot done. They parent really hard, right?
Yeah.
And they don't want to be seen as less than.
Yeah.
And so is there information on your website about how to access that information and how to look?
Well, I'll tell you, as someone who's been doing this so long, and all the attorneys in my office, I can say the same thing. If somebody calls us and even says, I have disability insurance, it's with Hartford or it's with Aetna, we know what that insurance policy already looks like.
Great.
We have a photocopy print of it in our mind.
Great.
So we could still walk them through what they need to know, even if they're hesitant at that point to reach out to HR.
So you don't mind if people use you as a resource early?
That's why we're here.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, we are a law firm that win these cases for current clients, but I can't tell you how much time we spend amongst the 8 attorneys in the firm just talking to people.
I saw the same vision that you painted for me of your dad, of people lined up to get information. It's digital times now, but I'm sure that there's so many people that will reach out and need your help. So there's a lot of people that are listening and watching that might be struggling with a disability claim. What do you recommend their first step is?
Call us.
Okay.
Yeah. All right. That's the
I think sometimes people feel like they don't want to bother you, or they don't want to, they're not sure. And so until they're sure, they're worried, but you want them to call early.
Haley, this is all I do.
Okay.
Every day. I wake up and this is what I chose to do.
Yes.
I want to help people who are going through this. I've built a law firm to help people who are going through this. And we encourage people to call us.
What should people know about the tactics that insurance companies use to deny these types of claims?
Yeah, so I think 3 things generally, right? One is the insurance companies argue there's no objective evidence, and that could just be legally wrong. You can't request objective evidence if the insurance policy doesn't require it, and most insurance policies don't require it at all.
Wow, okay.
The second thing is the insurance companies know that time is on their side. And so there's a delay game that's played when someone is unrepresented. And that is just a barrage of requests for information by the insurance company. And the insurance company saying, well, we didn't get the medical records from your doctors. We didn't get these forms from your doctors. And yet your doctors are saying, well, we faxed it 3 times. And this delay and this attempt at frustration, it does cause a lot of people to just kind of go away.
Right.
Yeah. So I'd say the third is the insurance companies are using a provision in insurance policies called a self-reported limitation provision that's specifically geared towards fatigue-related conditions. And they're lumping in M.B.A, CFS and Long COVID under what they consider to be fatigue-only conditions to limit payments of disability benefits to, say, 2 years. But what we know is these are multisystemic conditions. And fatigue is indeed one component, but it is not a fatigue-only disabling condition.
No, we're seeing every aspect of anything that could be inflammatory based, from cardiovascular to pulmonary to neurologic. I mean, it's been autoimmune, right?
Yes.
The trigger of autoimmune. It's been shocking clinically what we're seeing. I have to tell you that it makes me so angry when a patient comes back to us and they've been denied their disability insurance, and they have it. Their employer has provided it and they've been denied. How does that feel when someone comes to you and they're in that situation? Yeah,
I think I feel the same way. I get fired up. And you'd think after doing this all these years, I kind of get numb to it. No, every time I hear a story and how it's impacted somebody, it's like the first time I'm hearing it all over again.
It's infuriating. I mean, we're all working so hard. They're working so hard. I mean, that's the thing, is the effort that these individuals are making, and they want to be well.
Yeah,
right?
Nobody's choosing to be disabled, and certainly not from these medical conditions, right?
No. So I know that your law firm specifically has unique strategies and things that you've perfected by going through many of these similar situations. Can you kind of outline those strategies for me?
Yeah. So I've come up with a specific protocol for ME, CFS, and Long COVID cases with disability insurance companies. And knock on wood, we've not lost a single one.
Wow.
And the strategy is simple. It is overwhelm the insurance company with so much proof that our client is disabled that it is in their best interest financially to go pick on somebody else and leave my client alone.
Ooh.
And the way it works is we work closely with our client's treating physician team to get the medical information we need.
Right.
We take it, we send our client for CPET testing to get a report that helps document the restrictions and limitations.
It kind of quantifies all of that data.
It,
yes.
Right? We send that report to another CPET expert. Independent of the one who administered the test, who then writes an independent report corroborating the validity of the CPET. If our client has cognitive impairments, we have a neuropsychological evaluation done, and we separately, independently corroborate the testing. So now what we're doing is we're evidence building in a way where it's corroborated, and it's like a foundation of a house that just keeps getting bigger and stronger. Then we'll have our clients sometimes examined by experts in the field. And then finally, we will have everything reviewed by a physician who is an expert in the area of medicine involved.
Their particular diagnosis.
Exactly. And when we're done, we have better doctors, more qualified doctors, better reports, more reports than any insurance company could ever get from any of the doctors they're paying.
And with that system in place, what speaks to the heart of why you do this is they're also getting exceptional care. And I know that you're fighting the fight, but in that system that you've put together, that has set out a protocol for progress for these patients as well, which is what we all want in the end, is for them to feel better in any facet that they can.
Right.
That's great. It breaks my heart when I see patients that are forcing themselves to continue at work. They're using every vacation day. They're using every family leave day, everything that they have accessible to them because they're not well. And what do you say to a patient that is trying to expend their savings account, their friends helping them take care of kids, they're leaning on their families, leaning everywhere when they have insurance for this?
Exactly.
What do you say to those patients?
Well, I tell my clients, I'm not ethically allowed to give you a guarantee, but what I'll tell you is we're going to get this job done. We have a protocol, a strategy in place, and you're going to get your benefits. Just hang in there. Don't give up. Let us do the fighting for you on the legal side. Take care of yourself. We'll figure out the legal stuff.
That's great.
And I should also say, all those things that you've touched upon, right? Why would one drain their savings? Why would they go through all these things that they're going through if they're not truly disabled? So as part of the strategy, right? Yes, we load up on all the medical evidence, but we also tell a story.
I mean, people
we're
are
storytellers.
Yeah, and we see that clinically, right? And sometimes we have to say, hey, if you felt well, you wouldn't be expending all of these resources. You'd be off to Tahiti. You'd be in Venice. You'd be going and traveling and taking vacation days, but you're using your vacation days because you're not well.
Haylie, let me give you a visual and just an example of how we've won a case. We represented a client with long COVID. She was in her mid-20s, and the insurance company refused to recognize she was disabled no matter what evidence we gave them. And in just being good listeners and hearing the client's story, it turns out she got married in a wheelchair.
Oh.
Young lady who, before falling ill, was doing well. Great job. Great life ahead of her. And we turned over the photos, and we bombarded the insurance company with letters asking them to address this question. Do you think our client, who was making so much more money, is giving up all that money to fight an insurance company, and that she staged an entire wedding, putting on a wedding dress to take photos in a wheelchair.
Right.
So you have to polarize the claim, which is to mean the insurance company has to either accept the reality that this person is disabled and not faking being
right
wearing a wedding dress in a wheelchair.
Can we just
or push the insurance company to say, no, your clients are fake. And they won't, Haylie. They will not say the clients are fakes.
Right.
And so when you polarize it and give them two
options, yes,
it forces them to accept reality.
And I know I've had this conversation many times. I still can't even wrap my head around the fact that an insurance company can dispute a physician, and more than a physician, a patient.
Yeah.
I mean, I just can't even, that's one that I could go off on a huge tangent. But how are we navigating now with this long COVID, and how so many of the pathophysiology expressions are overlapping with ME CFS? How are we differentiating that in a disability suit? Is it critical that we say, this is long COVID, this isn't ME CFS, this is ME CFS, it isn't long COVID? Because internationally, they're very symbiotic, right? The immunologists in Germany and in Greece and in Israel, they were all speaking at our conference that we're saying, does it matter? How does that matter when you're talking about a disability claim?
It doesn't matter at all. The etiology, the cause of the disability from a legal perspective is completely unimportant. But what the insurance companies will do to an unsophisticated attorney in this practice area, and certainly an unrepresented person, is they would argue that there isn't any proof as to the causation and the diagnosis is unconfirmed or in dispute. And that's a rabbit hole. And as an attorney doing this for 20 years, I'm not going down that rabbit hole. I'm shutting down the insurance company on that argument.
I have to tell you, I had no idea that was the case. Hey, everybody listening, it's not your fault if you didn't know this. I didn't know this. This is new for me, because in my mindset, I thought I'm all about, the why, the cause, the diagnosis, right? So in my mindset, I'm saying, let's wait and call you after we get a diagnosis. But you're saying that that's not the case. It's what's happening in the actual body, in the actual person's life.
Yeah, it's legally irrelevant.
Wow. That's huge. I think that's huge. And I think that's really important that everybody that's listening that's struggling right now, because I think so many times we strive for a diagnosis so that maybe then we can apply for disability insurance, when in actuality, if you're suffering, you need to make a call.
That's right. That's 100% correct.
If the diagnosis is legally irrelevant, right, then how do you prove disability?
Well, the symptoms are not imaginary. Somebody is struggling with these symptoms, and we have ways of objectively proving the symptoms are real. CPET testing, neuropsychological evaluation testing, and those are all considered very strong medical evidence under law.
Lab testing.
Lab testing.
I mean,
we rely a lot on the lab testing coming out.
Yeah.
Right, from the institute
there's so many new biomarkers now that show.
Absolutely. But so you connect the dots on all of these things.
Right.
And then again, there's a human side to it, the storytelling. The person is not feigning any of these symptoms. And there's just so many ways you can establish that by speaking to somebody. Photographic evidence. I mean, we spoke about the client who got married in a wheelchair. Right? Yeah. And the power of that imagery.
Right. That's great. Well, I'm so thankful that you're such an advocate for everybody out there. I really appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Again, I think that sometimes, we feel a little bit prepped for it. The docs in our space have been experts in this field. And so, we have had that flood of patients. I can tell you what we see clinically, but what do you find most rewarding about helping people with these types of disability claims?
Well, it's knowing you're going into an unfair fight and coming out giving a bloody nose to an insurance company and getting them to back down and pay. And every time we win a case, I'll follow up and I'll call the client and I say, I can't change your medical situation, but I'm hoping that by winning the case, we've now removed one additional burden and stress. And I hope that does allow you to have a little bit of improvement in your quality of life. And it does, because the financial stress, the stress of taking on an insurance company does make the situation a lot worse.
And that I love that you say that. It actually gave me chills, because when we look at it from a clinical perspective, the number one thing that we try to identify is eliminating stressors,
Right.
to give the body a fighting chance, right? To see if the body can right itself. And when they're in a battle, that anybody, an individual that, had property damage, that wasn't even physically present for the property damage, that has to go to battle with an insurance company, finds that oftentimes more stressful than anything else in their life. Imagine that battle being within your body, right? And then fighting the insurance companies.
Exactly.
It's a really big struggle.
Exactly.
Tell me again, both the website, give me the website, give me the phone number.
Right. longtermdisability.net, 888-812-0393.
And I need one more thing. I need you to give us all permission one more time to reach out to you. I know you're incredibly busy. I watch you fight these ginormous, huge fights, legal battles. Let us know that it's okay to call.
100% okay to call.
Okay.